Look at that. We are ready to roll. 1 o'clock. All right.
Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody. All right. Today's class is in webinar format, so your camera is not going to be active. I can't see any of y'all, which makes it really odd and weird on my end because I just sit here and talk to myself, entertain myself, make myself laugh. So every now and then you throw me a thumbs up because this one is just laden with some John humor, if you will, all right? But if you can see me, you're in the right place and you'll get all your credits and all that good stuff. Just remember as soon as this is over, I mark the people that attended and because I get a list and then it's Trek after that. They usually take a week or so to get you your credits, but we will make sure that happens. All right, so today we are going to be doing septic system basics, right? So we will be recording this. If you want a copy of it, the easiest thing for me anyway is if you put your name in the chat, and at the end I've got everybody in one little list. I put them all together and I can send it to you so we can get it to you that way. It is a little difficult for me to watch chat, talk with my hands and entertain myself all that stuff at the same time. So if I don't answer something you put in there, you may have to interrupt me or something like that, but I'll try and do my best. Hey, Miss Christie. Boy, Miss Christie's been here on like every one for the last, as many as I can remember now. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Very cool. Thank you, Sky. This is good for 1 credit towards your license. Remember, give them about a week or so. You may also get an email asking you to leave some feedback. We appreciate it. If you hate my humor, you're not going to offend me. I'm too old for that. I don't care anymore. But we are always looking to make the classes better, more interesting. So any feedback you give us is going to be well received anyway. Who the heck am I? My name is John Bolton, and I am the instructor today. I started doing inspections back in 1998. Besides a degree in building construction, I picked up a few trophies and licenses along the way, and I'm also a national speaker on all things inspection related. I've published a bunch of articles and even written a couple of books, done over 12,000 various inspections throughout my career, and have helped train inspectors all over the country. I tell you guys this not to brag at all because I know there's always somebody smarter than I am on something in here. I only tell you that to maybe try to earn a little bit of trust, and you don't think that I'm a newbie or anything like that. Again, if you have questions, I'm going to try to watch the chat, but you may have to throw up a hand or just interrupt from time to time. So real quick here, we have 2 classes left for the year, which is cool. Now we'll be picking them back up again next year, but if you want to check the last one of the year out too, there's the date and time and everything. I will post, I guess, probably at break because I can't copy and paste out of my notes here for some reason. I don't know why that doesn't work. And there's never a teenager on here that can help me with that. But I will post on how to follow up, and it's just click a link and follow the bouncy ball type of thing. If you have some friends that you think would benefit from any of these classes, please let them know. We appreciate that a lot. If you want to set up some type of presentation for your office or maybe your team, we can hook you up there as well. I will put Lucas's name in the chat a little later on. Oh wait, this is only an hour, so we won't even have a break. I'm just gonna have to talk fast. I'll get it here one way or the other. But he is the Texas Regional Manager, and I'll get you his contact info, or you can always just Google TLC home inspections, right? That'd be the easiest thing to do. But this class is sponsored by TLC Inspections. TLC is a local multi-inspector firm. We service Austin, San Antonio, Houston, all those surrounding areas. And here's what you get when you use us as your inspection partner. Whoops, my bad. Um, whoops, sorry. We do over 6,000 inspections every year, so we come from a whole lot of experience. We know you guys work 7 days a week, so we are available 7 days a week as well. There's always somebody that'll take your call. We include warranties with all our full home inspections. We are also real excited to offer a home binder. You guys all get, all the clients and you get access to home binder. For the client, home binder is one of these single, simple, little secure online platforms that all the home maintenance stuff goes in. It's like an electronic filing cabinet, if you will. So clients can store their inspection reports, any of those related documents, warranty stuff, repairs, renovations, all those kind of things. And then they receive maintenance reminders and even appliance recalls. You guys would be shocked at how many appliance recalls there are. I have even had some of my stuff fixed for free, and it's always a free fix or replacement. But HomeBinder also does a free concierge service. So clients can utilize them for all those things that they have to do when they're moving, setting up utilities and moving companies and all those kind of things. All of those companies are geographically specific and vetted for all those. So they get that for free. It doesn't cost them anything. They don't have to use it, but like who doesn't like free? The really cool part for you guys as agents, HomeBinder brands every one of those messages that goes out, every reminder that's sent to the client with your information. So you're at the top of their minds more frequently. It's free marketing for you, right? You can't beat that, right? Now, HomeBinder also does this repair pricer for all of the deficiencies and stuff that are found in the report. They're all researched again to geographic specific areas, so all the estimates are going to be accurate. And that price repair only goes to you, the agent. So you can use it or ignore it. It doesn't make any difference, but it doesn't cost you anything to put that stuff together. And a lot of agents will use that as, hey, here's the list of stuff we want done. And so it's a tool you guys can use. As far as reports, they're typically delivered that same day within a few hours, assuming all of the technology gods are on our side. We have over 1,400 five-star reviews online, so we take client services really serious, which means we also do a 200% guarantee. If you or the client is not satisfied with the inspection, not only are we going to refund your money, but we're also going to pay for and send out the inspector your choice to do the inspection again. So it helps take away risk. Here's some of the things that separate us from the competition. All our inspections get free infrared imaging, infrared scans on the house. This helps us identify things that you can't see with your eyeballs. Things like missing insulation, duct leakage, overheated breakers, leaks from toilets, concealed leaks like that. All kinds of really, really cool stuff. And most of our packages include foundation elevation readings. Really neat. So that helps take the guesswork out of the house that they're buying because they get a foundation assessment of that particular house. With most of our packages, the irrigation is included up to 12 zones. We do in-house termite, pool, septic, and depending on what markets you're in, we offer mold and indoor air quality assessments. We can do all that kind of stuff and sewer scoping. I highly, highly, highly recommend sewer scoping for every client you have and every single one of you sitting here right now. You would be amazed and shocked at the stuff that we find in sewer lines. And that's old houses as well as brand new. We find all kinds of weird stuff. And then lastly, we also do pay at close, which is sometimes a really, really cool and enables clients to get some things that they may have let go because they didn't want to spend the money. Now they can go ahead and get things like the sewer scope and a radon or mold or whatever, and it all rolls into the closing there. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. Here's today's objectives. What is a septic system? We're going to go over the things like the tank and what it looks like in the tank and the layers inside that. We're going to briefly touch on sizing and stuff like that for different houses. We are going to talk about maintenance of septics. Um, that's right, maintenance. You guys do realize that you're supposed to get in there and clean those tanks out periodically, right? Okay, I'm imagining a lot of real sour faces, maybe a few smiles, laughs, giggles. I don't know. I don't see any thumbs up, so maybe it was only funny in my head. We will discuss maintenance, though. We'll talk about the different types of systems and common problems, and then, of course, we'll have a Q&A, and I will stick around all night long if you want to. Doesn't matter to me. Now, let's dive in. Maybe I shouldn't have put it that way. Let's roll. But I think a good place to start is to go over some common key terms. That way, as we go through this, when I start saying these, you understand where I'm coming from. The first one we're going to describe is effluent. Okay, if um, if you're full of effluent, it's kind of the opposite of affluent. Okay, effluent, that simply means liquid waste. So if you hear me using the term effluent, that's simply liquid waste. That's it. Then there is wastewater. Wastewater that has been used in a home or a business and or even commercial, industrial, anything like that. So a good example of wastewater would be shower water or water you use when you're washing your hands, something like that. Next, you have the leach field or the drain field. This is you can hear it both ways. It's the same difference, and that is the subsurface stuff. Okay, what happens after it goes through the tank and then into the drain field to remove the contaminants and ultimately get pulled back in by the well. That was a good visual, right? And then one more thing we have here is a conventional system. If you ever hear someone refer to a septic system as conventional, that's basically an anaerobic system. So we'll get into anaerobic versus aerobic, but very simply stated, anaerobic means without air. It's just old school stuff. Aerobic is one with air. Air is actually infused into the system itself, and we will look at that. And then you'll probably hear me use terms like microbes. Those are things that live naturally in the soil and then help filter out toxins and pathogens, and they taste like chicken. I'm still getting no thumbs up. All right. All right. What is a septic system? Septic system is often referred to as an STS, HSTS, or OSWD. All the same difference. It's an on-site sanitary waste disposal system. Okay. Septic system is often utilized in areas that don't have sewer infrastructure. So a lot of times these homes are rural areas or homes on large plots of land where the city sewer system is not readily accessible. The purpose of a septic system is the treatment of wastewater from the home or the business so that effluent can be discharged back into the environment without any environmental issues, right? No impact to the ecosystem. This really encapsulates, I guess, exactly what the whole goal of the system is. But you look at this guy in the picture, and I don't know, it looks like he's gagging or something. I'm looking at this, maybe I got to find a better picture. That's not the best representation, right? A septic tank is an underground treasure chest. I mean, it's a chamber made of concrete, fiberglass, sometimes plastic. This is where all the domestic wastewater flows for the very first basic treatment. Often it's going to be a tank with two pipes, one from the house to the tank, and then one from the tank to the drain field out in the yard. So here you can see just a real simple, good example. We've got the tank here, after the flush. That's the line coming from the house. And then you have your line going to the drain field or leach field. You see that white pipe that penetrates it penetrates the roof on the backside there. That is to help it exhausts sewer gas, but it also pulls in air. You have to have air behind the water for the whole system to work. I always like to use the example of, like, you remember when you're a little kid and you were at a restaurant and you put the straw in your Coke and you put your thumb over the straw and you lift the straw up and the Coke doesn't come out, and then you lift your thumb and the Coke comes out and everybody laughs. That pipe is the removing your thumb on the back of the straw. It's going to have air behind the water, so everything goes away, because when you do this and everything goes away, life is good. All right. Looking through my notes here real quick. All right, so essentially what happens in the tank is that you'll have the heavier solid waste stuff that goes to the bottom. It settles down to the bottom and bacteria eats it. Okay. Liquids and then lighter floaty stuff floats and goes to the top. That's a passive system. The wastewater then exits the tank and enters into the D box or the distribution box. And that basically sends it out into the drain field evenly, okay? Once it gets in the drain field, it percolates down through the soil where it's cleaned. And like I said, if you're on a well, you just suck it right back into your house. If you're panicking, I'm just kidding. You're not really sucking right back into the house. It cleans it. God cleans it as it goes through the earth, right? This is a great slide to kind of help you understand some of the clearance requirements in a septic system. So we're going to start here at the wall, or at the well. There we go. The septic tank and the leach field, they can be anywhere from 75 to 150 feet from a well, depending on your particular jurisdiction. For obvious reasons, you don't want to suck that right back into the house, right? You don't want that discharged wastewater anywhere near what you could be possibly drinking. Then you've got distance. The septic tank will be 5 feet from the foundation, typically, and the leach field will be 5 feet from slab on grade. Then you can see property lines there. The septic tank's got to be at least 5 feet from the property line. Okay. The leach field there will be 10 feet from a property line. Typical. Remember, everything could always have an asterisk behind it, but that's going to be your minimum typical. Then, of course, you have a pitch. Obviously, everything has to be properly pitched to allow wastewater and gravity to work. You want the solids and all that stuff to flow to the tank. So the pitch from the house to the tank is a 1/4 inch per foot. Okay, that's typical in all drain waste systems. And when you get into larger size, it can be a little bit less, but most of our residential is going to be that 1/4 inch per foot because we don't typically go over 4-inch pipe in residential. Then you can see the pitch from the house. Then you have the pitch to the D box, the distribution box, and then that distribution box to various different types of drain lines or drain fields. We're going to hit a lot of these different systems today. And then, of course, you have the leach field there. And you can see stone and pipe chambers. Those look like they're about 4 foot from the water table, a seasonal water table. It At this point, it really depends on the topography and where you're installing this. But we'll go over some of those specs and some of those terms here in a second. But you look at this and think, my God, is this what a home inspector looks at every time? No, not at all. This was just a very, very simple, basic diagram so you have it in your head. When I teach technical classes to guys, I tell them they can't look at a wall and see colors and textures and trims and stuff. They need to see sticks and nails and pipes and wires and draft stop and stuff like that. So hopefully this helps. When you go out in the field and you're in front of your clients, you'll be able to speak with some kind of authority. You kind of know what it looks like. But an inspector obviously is never going to dig any of this stuff up. And if you're some states like Florida, that would be illegal to do any type of septic evaluation, by the way. That's all licensed. We can't touch that kind of stuff. All right, the different layers in a septic tank, there's 3 layers, and we'll take a look at these right now. There's the scum layer, which you can see at the top. It's going to be your lighter stuff that flows to the top. Then in the middle is your clear zone. Okay, that's still waste stuff. All right. And then the heavier stuff, they call the sludge, that settles down to the bottom of the tank. And again, we're going to go over each of these a little bit more in detail. But if you happen to be getting hungry and want to stop for a snack, feel free. Just let me know. But I think I might be saving people, helping everybody lose a little bit of weight right now. So here is another great image, scum layer, which we talked about being on the top. That's going to be things like oils, grease, fats, things like that. So if you've ever taken a glass when you're cooking something like pork or something like that, and you have it in foil and you get that natural runoff, if you put those juices in a glass, you're gonna see the same thing naturally occur. You'll see all the oils and greases and fats and stuff that make their way to the top, and they hang out and they float there. So that's now a good visual, I hope, anyway, mind visual anyway, and you get it and you won't forget it. Then you've got that clear zone, and this is needed to keep solids from being pushed into your pipes and your drain fields. Okay, so another really great diagram here of how a septic works, and it shows you how it naturally separates. Sludge layer on the bottom, clear zone in the middle, scum floats to the top. All right, and now here in this one, you can see that second chamber. That's where even less solids and clears, there's a filter on all this stuff, and it's draining out towards the drain field there. Okay, so it's breaking down in the first chamber, goes into the second chamber, and then out into the pipes and the drain field and that kind of stuff. So a lot of the newer tanks are going to have two chambers, and that second chamber allows for just more breakdown and separation before it gets out into the drain field. So the more breakdown you have, the better efficient it's going to be when it gets back into the earth or whatever type of system that you have. Now this is real important because this is really why you have to pump tanks. If that sludge layer builds up, it's going to back up into that outlet, and it can actually back up into the house. Okay.
Sorry, just a quick question on that thing, if I may.
Yeah.
There's no fat separator there, is there, in that layers?
It just happens naturally. The fats and greases and stuff will float to the top in that scum layer, and then the heavy
Ah,
stuff settles down to the bottom. So it's just all natural, all natural.
okay. So the fat naturally goes to the upper chamber, basically the whatever it was called,
Right. Next
the
next
top
time,
layer.
yeah, next time you're preparing dinner and you've got greasy stuff or whatever, put it in a
Hmm.
glass of water and you'll watch it float to the top.
Because we're supposed, I mean, I thought we had to sort of not put fat in our septic system. We're supposed to sort of,
Exactly.
yeah.
Thank you, Miss Laura. I tell you what, if you guys, next time you're on a job and you're seeing the inspector use a sewer scope, watch it. Okay. You will see some of the nasty. Oh, matter of fact, I just last night I put a picture of grease, what grease looks like in a waistline, and it's nasty. It's really nasty. It will actually reduce the size of your pipe because it builds up so bad in there. But we'll get to that in a sec. Okay, then that sludge layer that settles down to the bottom, the heavier stuff will settle. Um, Things like toilet paper, feces, other solids. Okay, so food solids, like when after dinner, you clear your plate in the sink, those things are going to be heavier and settle down to the bottom. Um, if you were to um, say if you were to flush and store all your jewelry down there, good thing that at that point it becomes 100% thief proof. Okay, I've got a lot of poop jokes here, so I'll just entertain myself. Now, because it can all the sludge stuff can get higher and nastier and thicker, that's why we have to pump the tanks. And typically 3 to 5 years is a good time frame. And I'll hit on that again and where that stat comes from in a little bit. Then there's something called gray water. Gray water is stuff like your laundry waste, bath water, sink water, etc. Anything except toilet waste. Toilet waste is black water. So everything else is gray water. Homes that have bathrooms in their basement or laundries in the basement, they will have to have some kind of sump pump, some kind of lift to lift that all that stuff up and out into the septic system. All right, let's talk about the septic tank size, and this is a rule of thumb. Okay, 1,000 gallon tank is good for about a 3 bedroom house. 1,500 gallon tank for up to a 5 bedroom house. Rules of thumb. Okay, septic systems are sized by the number of bedrooms, not the bathrooms, by the number of bedrooms. Okay. Why? Because they they estimate that each person will use 75 gallons per day, and that there's 2 people per bedroom. So they come up with that's how they come up with those sizes. So sometimes you come across a house that has had an illegal bedroom addition. Okay. Now all of a sudden that system may not be able to handle the load. And at that point, to modify the system can be gross expensive, can be really, really expensive. We have some areas where I'm at, and things change over time, the water table and EPA rules and stuff like that, and they can no longer replace what was there. They have to go to a better engineered system. And some of those are mounted systems. And you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. So when you guys are selling a house or buying a house with a septic system, that's going to be the best, whatever it costs you, 400, 500, 600, $700 to do the septic evaluation, have it pumped and all that, that could save you hundreds of times more than that. So highly, highly, highly recommend septic inspections. By the way, did you hear about the 2 septic tanks that were having a chat one day? One says to the other, you know, there's a whole world up there that we can't even see. There's trees and clouds and sky and people and animals and all kinds of cool stuff. The other one looks at him out of the corner of his eye and says, shut up, you're just full of crap. Okay, let's go over some general maintenance. You should consider a septic tank to be a very large, expensive appliance. Septic tanks require maintenance and servicing, okay? And like I said, no inspector is going to be able to evaluate the tank when it's full. And as I mentioned earlier, the best time to evaluate the system is when it's being pumped, when you can actually see the condition of it inside. So if your client is purchasing a home, you always, always, always want to have that system pumped before they take possession of the house. Same if you're a listing agent too, all right? Having this pumped and or inspected up front can help avoid potential issues, as well as make that whole transaction go way smoother and way faster. So, how often should these be pumped? Take a guess. Well, according to the EPA, the average household septic system should be inspected at least every 3 years by a septic service professional. Household septic tanks are typically pumped every 3 to 5 years. Alternative systems with electric float switches, pumps, or mechanical components should be inspected often or more often, generally once a year. So it's not something you need to sit on. It needs to be maintained and inspected periodically. And speaking of pumpers, did you hear about the septic pumper that jumped into the tank? He was pretty down in the dumps. Another important thing is going to be to protect your drain field. It's important to know where that drain field is at and make sure that you protect that. So you don't want to be parking vehicles on top of it. I know when I was a kid, I always pulled my truck or something in the front yard to wash it. And if that's where the drain field is, that's bad. Okay, you can cause damage and stuff like that. You also want to make sure that there's no trees, that you don't have bushes and stuff like that planted over the drain field. That can just clog it up, and then it becomes very, very expensive. You also want to monitor and eliminate putting harsh chemicals down the drain. And what I mean is anything that you're putting down the drain, you got to be real mindful, because when you put the wrong mixture of chemicals and stuff down there, it throws off the entire balance, the whole natural bacteria breakdown process of all that solid waste. So chemicals bad. And you need to be mindful of what you flush down the toilet and dump down the drain. Sometimes you need to remind people that a toilet is not a trash can, okay? Don't put diapers and wipes, feminine hygiene products, cigarette butts, and cat litter. I can't believe that I have to say cat litter, but believe it or not, I've seen people empty the cat litter box into the toilet. That's just a stupid idea. You don't want to do that.
I don't know how it is in the state of Florida. I know you're there, but in Texas, the state of Texas basically requires that we have a kind of a maintenance contract, a licensed maintenance contract provider with the house. So it's not optional. It's it's a requirement.
That is so true, and I learned it right here. I put it in a slide coming up a little later. Um, yeah, you guys are actually required by law, so you totally get it. But high five, Miss Laura. Appreciate that. Um, a lot of people ask, can I have or should I have a disposal with if I'm on septic? And the answer is sure. You just still need to be mindful of what you're putting down the drain. That's all. Um, Now, this is going to increase the amount of solids in your tank, of course, and you just always need to remember if you can't eat it, don't put it down the drain. That's kind of the simple rule. They do make disposals designed for septic use, like the one here in the picture. So, maintain plants and trees near the system, like we mentioned. You really want to make sure that you don't have roots that grow into and then start clogging holes in the piping and in the gravel, depending on what type of system you have. Um, I remember getting to an inspection one time, and it was a real log cabin in Florida, which is kind of rare. And when we got there, the tank had been dug up and the lid put back on with some orange flags. That told me immediately that the septic contractor had been there and found something wrong, and it cannot cover it back up with the dirt and grass because that would be concealing. Just like a general contractor that found structural damage in a wall couldn't put the drywall back up and hide it, right? Well, that was the case when the new client looking at it had the septic guy come by, pull the lid back off, and the whole thing was full of roots. And you're looking at a whole new tank, and that was very close to the neighboring property, and it was a real big. It would have been tens of thousands of dollars anyway. But next one is follow manufacturer's instructions when you're using any of these cleaners or additives. They'll print right on there whether it's septic safe or not. Remember, you don't want to break down the whole bacteria breakdown process. Okay. Simple things like soap. Okay, that's not going to be an issue when you're showering and things like that. I'm talking about heavy duty cleaners, grease, like we talked about, right, Ms. Laura? Anything of that kind of nature can affect that system's ability to break down the stuff and break down the grease, and can only contribute to clogging up pipes in the system. And matter of fact, here it is. Let me show you exactly what grease looks like inside your pipes. Watch this. That's nasty, isn't it? And it solidifies, excuse me, it solidifies in there, effectively reducing the size of your pipe. So that promotes more clogging, potential clogging issues and stuff like that. So that's what grease looks like inside a pipe. Now, if you're still with me, this is from the EPA septic site. There's a lot of really good stuff regarding what we can do to become what they call septic smart. That's their marketing thing. First thing is shield your field aspect. Divert rainwater and surface water away from the area. Avoid parking cars, driving over, planting trees, anything like that over the drain field. Next one's going to be don't overload the commode. Don't flush diapers, wipes, that kind of thing. That's, really meant for a trash can, not the septic system. Think at the sink. Limit the use of your garbage disposal and avoid putting fats, grease, solids, harsh chemicals, that kind of stuff. When you're done eating at night, scrape the plate in the garbage before you start flushing that down your drain. Good segue. Don't strain your drain. Use water efficiently and stagger use of your water-based appliances like your washing machine and your dishwasher. Keep it clean. If you're on a well, test your water regularly to make sure it stays clean and free of contamination. And then pump your tank. Make sure that you are pumping at regular intervals. And that's going to differ a little bit depending on use. All right, next we're going to review some different types of systems, things that you might see out there in the field. Most common is going to be your conventional. Okay, that's your anaerobic without air, and your aerobic systems. So anaerobic and aerobic are your basic things that you're going to see out there. It is helpful to know the different types of systems. So, you know, you can offer educated advice to clients. And also, if Alex Trebek ever asked you, you won't have to phone a friend. You'll just know. All right, the first one here is the anaerobic system. This is your basic conventional system, the most common one that you're going to see. This system involves the use of bacteria, natural bacteria, to break down the stuff. Okay, so there's at this point there's no added oxygen. Okay, bacteria will break down waste before it distributes that stuff back in or into the drain field or the leach field. And that bacteria is going to naturally grow in the tank. Sometimes you'll see, those additives that you can add. You don't really have to do that. All right. If you limit the bacteria killing stuff, the chemicals and those kind of things, you don't need chemicals to break down the stuff in the septic tank. It does it naturally. So that's right. All those things that you spend your money on in the grocery store, not needed as long as you're maintaining the system. Here's a really great image how kind of shows you how everything works. We're going to start with water coming in from the well, running to the house, providing water to the house. Then you get your wastewater from the house. You got your access risers for pumping and servicing the tank. Your drain line there, then your D box or distribution box, and then it goes out to the drain field. So that effluent is naturally filtered through the soil, and that's basically how it works. Now, those gravel systems are pretty big as far as their overall footprint, and it might not always work in all situations or sites. And that's why you're going to see a lot of different types of treatment systems today to fit these different challenges, different geographics, and different sites have. An aerobic treatment unit, or an ATU, if you want to, sound militaristic or just sound cool, ATUs, use a lot of the same processes as a municipal sewage plant, but just on a smaller scale. The difference between aerobic and anaerobic, remember, is oxygen. That's it. So an aerobic system is injecting or adding oxygen into that system. The benefits being it breaks down waste way faster, like 80% more efficient, way more efficient. When you have poor soil types, that don't perk real well, sorry, breaking this stuff down smaller is going to help quite a bit. It also uses a smaller footprint. It doesn't have to be as big as your conventional systems. So when you have tight lot spaces and stuff like that, you will often see a different type of system. A lot of them are aerobics. This helps when you inject oxygen in there like that. It helps with the clogging issues. Your sludge layer doesn't build up like it does in the conventional systems. And you know what else? It's really great if you're thinking like, if you're thinking green, the water conservation, a lot of this water can be repurposed for irrigation. You ever seen those little pale purple sprinkler heads? Yeah, don't ever don't use that to wash your hands off. That's where the water's coming from. Okay, it's gray water that hasn't been fully treated, so you don't drink that stuff. That's why they color them differently. But this is a good example. This picture here, you got your air pump pumping air in. That effluent is going to come up through that outlet and out to the treatment system. but you can kind of see how the air is helping break down that waste there, right? Now, there's a whole bunch of benefits of this system. It will cost more. However, you're adding tech and you're adding equipment. So with that, it's also going to require a little more maintenance, right? You've got moving parts and that kind of thing. So it will be way more efficient, but it can be more expensive. And this is what an aerobic septic system looks like. Real easy to identify the pump right there, right? You can even see that little police alarm on the top. If there's ever a problem, that thing will start flashing saying, help me, help me. So you can let your clients know that and sound like a real septic system rock star. All right, next we're going to talk about a chamber system. And a chamber system is a gravelless drainage system that offers a lot of savings and, as far as your carbon footprint. So what you're going to find on a lot of these systems is that the tank itself is the same, and it's really just the filtration and the distribution that varies a little bit. It's easier to ship. It's easier to construct because you don't have all that rock, all that gravel. You're simply laying pipe, right? So it's good for areas with high groundwater tables. And here's a good example of a chambered system. So you can kind of see those chambers, the big black plastic chambers. They're direct contact with the soil. This is what chambered system looks like. Next, we have a drip system or a drip distribution system. This is a type of effluent dispersal system that can be used in different types of drain fields. The main advantage is that you don't have to have a big mound of soil or anything like that. It requires a large dosing tank, which is a pump tank, a big pump tank. That a big tank, because it needs to accommodate a timed delivery of a measured dose of wastewater. Of course, with this electrical power, you're going to need that in this type of system. The disadvantage of a drip system is that it's going to require that large dosing tank, okay, after the septic. That's going to accommodate all that wastewater, and of course, it requires more maintenance too. It just becomes sometimes the site dictates what type of system you're going to put in, and it can't be the least expensive one. So if you've seen one on a new construction home, that wastewater is pumped down through these drain lines. And then all that's just dripped out and distributed back into the groundwater, filters right through the soil. Then we have the mound system. Okay, this is used in areas where you have a shallow vertical separation. What a vertical separation means is how far down to an impervious layer you have. Okay, sometimes you're going to have that impervious layer is going to be much, much higher, and that's going to dictate how much engineering basically goes into it. And of course, the more engineering that goes into it, the more it's going to cost. So effluent from the septic tank flows to a pump chamber, so a lot like the drip system, and then it's pumped to the mound. Treatment occurs as it filters through the sand and disperses throughout the soil. So you can see another great visual right here. You can see you got your gravel, topsoil, and your sand. Wastewater flows through the gravel, filters through the sand, and then, right through the ground. So sometimes these mound systems they're good solutions for certain soil conditions. but they are going to require a lot of space and they just ain't pretty. Let me show you a picture of one. This is what it looks like. And this is an awful large one. They're not always this big, but a smaller picture wouldn't be as cool, right? So if you ever see a really weird looking hill in front or sometimes behind the house, especially if like it has a large lot or something like that, you know it's probably a mound system. This is an actual picture here of a moon mound system that I found online. Next, we have a sand filtered system. Good thing is you're probably not going to find these in Texas or on the moon. A sand filter system provides a high level of treatment, and it's really great for sites that has a like a high water table. Okay, they can build them on top of the ground, or they can build them below grade. Effluent's pumped under low pressure to the top of the filter and then filtered through the sand before it's discharged into the drain field. This is what you might see in the backyard. Looks like a huge sandbox. All right, next we have an evapotranspiration system. Now, with this one, effluent never drains into the ground. It actually evaporates into the air with this particular system. The base of the drain field is they line it with a watertight material. Okay, so effluent never reaches the groundwater. It's only useful in very specific environmental conditions, and like you'll see them like in very, very arid places, real dry climate places. You have to have adequate heat and sunlight for these things to work properly. So as you can see here, wastewater from the house goes into the septic tank, drains down into the tank, and transpiration bed. Okay, from there, using God-given natural sunlight, it allows for that wastewater to naturally evaporate. This is what they look like. This picture is the best representative I could find on the internet. All right, the next one we have is really cool and is referred to as a wetland system. It basically mimics the treatment process that occurs in nature, in natural wetlands. So wastewater is treated by microbes, plants and other things like that that help remove pathogens and nutrients. Plants that you'd see in a wetland system need to be able to survive in an environment that is perpetually wet, right? Wastewater may exit the wetland and flow into a drain field, and there's different ways to do that. Now, I'm going to show you a really cool picture of one of these next, but first, really quick, um, from our septic over to that wetland, you can see in this instance, it does flow to a distribution system. It's also using all these plants to help filter out and remove pathogens, though. Then through the pea gravel, then it's distributed to a D box and then out to the drain field. These are really cool, and here is an example of one. Kind of neat, right? This is probably a field here created from all those houses up above. All of those are going to drain down into this wetland system. All those plants are going to thrive because they're constantly being fed in that, it's constantly wet, moist environment. and it's kind of neat. Then we've got a cluster system or a community system. And I know you're probably thinking, I'm surprised I never knew there were this many types of septic systems, right? There's a lot of different ones, and we're not even going to touch on all of them, but every one of them has its own specific case. Okay. This one here is a decentralized wastewater treatment system used by a community or a neighborhood. So often it's co-owned by the residents that utilize that system. Now, each residence they'll still have their own septic tank, all right? So that homeowner is going to be responsible for pumping their own tank, but then the community actually shares the drain field. And I just look at that and think, what could possibly go wrong, right, in that scenario? And I feel y'all shaking your heads. And when you're shaking your heads like that, it makes you look sexy, by the way. People think you're smart. They can have different types of drain fields too. In this particular image you're looking at here, they're utilizing one of those drip systems. Those, I'm going to say, are typically found in more rural subdivisions where you got 20, 30, 40 acres, something like that, and you've got a cluster of homes and they're all really close together. That's probably the only time I've ever seen or heard of something like this. And this next picture you're going to see here, bam, that's actually from a cabin community. I was told this is in Colorado. I'll take the word for it. And also all those cabins run to those little tanks. So a neat example. I think when you have this visual, it helps you remember these things, how this actually works. All right, so we covered a bunch of different systems. I hope your system is not overloaded. But like most components of your home, septic systems, like we mentioned, require maintenance. If maintained, the system is going to give you decades of reliable service. Okay. If the septic system is not maintained, those people are going to run the risk of sometimes dangerous and almost always very costly failures. And even though septic systems do have a typical operational lifetime, eventually everything needs to be replaced, right? We'll talk about life expectancy actually here coming up. A failed or a malfunctioning system is going to be a risk to humans and animals, right? Because it can pollute the environment. So that's probably one of the most important things. So a responsible septic homeowner is going to be, they're probably going to be aware of signs of failure, okay, regardless of how old it is, and they need to quickly respond to things as they discover them. I'm telling you, a quick response is going to save money in repairs, and then of course can prevent people or animals or whatever from getting sick and damaging the environment. So let's take a look at some common problems that we find. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some visual examples and talk about things that we typically see as inspectors or things you could be mindful of as a real estate agent or a homeowner when it comes to your own septic system. So the first one's going to be standing water, okay, wet spots in your yard. That would be a red flag, right? Especially if it hasn't been raining. There's been no rain and you see a wet spot anywhere near the septic system, that's a big red flag. I actually had one on Lake Jessup, and it hadn't rained in like 2 months, and there's a nice big puddle in the backyard and it stunk. I knew what it was. I called my septic guy And I said, this is where I'm at. And he says, because of your location there, that's going to require um, a very engineered system because it's right on the water. And he says, I'll tell you right now, I charge somewhere between 30 and 40 grand, depending on, there's always factors there. And I'm like, holy smokes. So that was a showstopper right there. If you ever have experienced or ever seen or ever come across, hear people talking about sewage backing up into the bathtubs. Okay, that's Houston, we have a problem issue. If sewage is overflowing into the home, now you can have not only septic repairs, but turn into a very expensive black water remediation at that point. If bathtub, showers, sinks, anything like that is draining slow, I don't mean just one, but all of them are draining slow. That could be an indication there's an issue with either the whole septic system or maybe the primary drain that's going out to the system. Again, you always want to be proactive and not reactive. Have your system inspected regularly, especially if you are representing a buyer. Okay, remember that Lake Jessup story I just told you. Another thing to be really mindful of is bad odors. Okay, you shouldn't smell anything, actually. Another thing is tree root infiltration. We mentioned that. So keep all your plants and trees away from the tank and the drain field. Don't want them anywhere near. If you're installing a fence or something like that, if you're having a pond dug out, okay, I mentioned don't park on top of these things. Be very mindful of all those. Sometimes you might see a nice bright green, spongy, lush area on the other side of the fence. Okay, that could be a system a red flag that it needs to be looked at. Like you look at this picture, you got that little strip of green grass there. That could be an issue.
Sorry, let me ask you a question. So, but if it's a drip system,
Mhm.
that's sort of dripping there, that's not a problem then, right? I mean, here you can see the two area. I mean, around it being dry, but if you have a
Right.
kind of a field where you have a drip system and it's lush because it's dripping water, that wouldn't be a problem, correct?
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's not going to be as deep as a lot of these other systems, but it'll probably be one big area as opposed to a strip or something like this. But very good point. Good eye. I love it. Look at the rock star coming out of you. Some other common septic problems could include things like settlement or upheaval of the tank, right? There are some areas that have expansive soils, right? A lot of clays. So it could be an issue. If we ever see an area, like we know the tank is probably in this area and there's a real big dip in the yard, it could be an indication that there's some tank settlement and would need to be looked at. And of course, you do that before closing, right? When you have a tank or something like that settles, what happens after that? Well, then you have the pipes that are going into it are breaking, dislodging, right? Then all of a sudden you have all that really high nutrient-rich water, and the roots are going to go straight to it and start growing inside it, and it just gets worse. Chemicals, paints, automotive products in septic tanks, bad. There's a proper place to dispose of those. Never ever dump stuff like that in a septic system. We mentioned before bacteria and enzyme additives. I'm going to bring it up again, I think here. Main reason is because I want to reinforce if your tank is being used and maintained properly, it will have everything that it needs to function properly. Okay, so don't always feel like you have to go add bacteria and those enzymes and those kind of additives that you get at the grocery store. You don't have to add those in order for the tank and everything to perform as needed. And the last thing is going to be clogged filters. A lot of those systems have a pre-filter. So it's filtering out some of the solid waste or anything that could make it down into the drainage system before it distributes, out into the drain field. So you're going to want to clean those things regularly. The frequency, well, that's going to depend on what kind of filter you have and how much is being used. Those things typically you just pull the filter, you walk right out to it in the yard and you pull that filter right out of that poop smoothie and hose it off. That's it. It's real simple. But the more, the more education you can provide your clients, the happier they're going to be with their overall purchasing experience, right? They're going to know that you're a rock star, that you know what you're doing. So if you're tired of hearing my crap, I will now enlighten you on one of life's greatest lessons. Y'all have heard the phrase, "It could always be worse." Okay, that right there is funny. I expect you guys to be laughing right now. All right. The only reason the neighbor's grass is greener is because the septic tank is overflowing.